Career of Isaac Newton. The optics inaugural lectures at Trinity Newton was elected to a fellowship in Trinity College in 1667 after the university reopened. 2 years later, Isaac Barrow, Lucasian professor of mathematics, who had transmitted Newton's De Analysis to John Collins in London, resigned the chair to devote himself to divinity and recommended Newton to succeed him. The professorship exempted Newton from the necessity of tutoring, but imposed the duty of delivering an annual course of lectures. He chose the work he had done in optics as the initial topic. During the following 3 years, 1670 to 72, his lectures developed the essay of colors into a form which was later revised to become Book 1 of his optics. Encyclopedia Britannica, Ask the Chatbot Games and Quizzes History and Society Science and Tech Biographies, Animals and Nature Geography, and Travel Arts and Culture. Pro-con money videos, Ask Anything. Quick summary, Philosophy and Religion, Religious Personages and Scholars. Isaac Newton, English physicist and mathematician, also known as Sir Isaac Newton. Richard S. Westphal, Britannica Editors, February 6, 2026. History, quick summary, Ask Anything. Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton, Oil on Canvas by Sir Godfrey Kneller, 1702, in the National Portrait Gallery, London. Newton's discoveries in physics and mathematics revolutionized science. Top questions. What is Isaac Newton most famous for? How was Isaac Newton educated? What was Isaac Newton's childhood like? Isaac Newton, born December 25, 1642, January 4, 1643, Woolsthorpe, Lincolnshire, England, died March 20th, March 31st, 1727, London, was an English physicist and mathematician who was the culminating figure of the scientific revolution of the 17th century. In optics, his discovery of the composition of white light integrated the phenomena of colors into the science of light and laid the foundation for modern physical optics. In mechanics, his 3 laws of motion, the basic principles of modern physics, resulted in the formulation of the law of universal gravitation. In mathematics, he was the original discoverer of the infinitesimal calculus. Newton's Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, 1687, was one of the most important single works in the history of modern science. Formative influences understanding Newton's theory of universal gravitation. Understanding Newton's theory of universal gravitation, Isaac Newton's formulation of the law of universal gravitation. See all videos for this article. Born in the hamlet of Woolsthorpe, Newton was the only son of a local yeoman, also Isaac Newton, who had died 3 months before, and of Hannah Asco. That same year at Arcetri near Florence, Galileo Galilei had died. Newton would eventually pick up his idea of a mathematical science of motion and bring his work to full fruition. A tiny and weak baby, Newton was not expected to survive his first day of life, much less 84 years. Deprived of a father before birth, he soon lost his mother as well, for within 2 years she married a second time. Her husband, the well-to-do minister Barnabas Smith, left young Isaac with his grandmother and moved to a neighboring village to raise a son and 2 daughters. For 9 years, until the death of Barnabas Smith in 1653, Isaac was effectively separated from his mother, and his pronounced psychotic tendencies have been ascribed to this traumatic event. That he hated his stepfather, we may be sure. When he examined the state of his soul in 1662 and compiled a catalog of sins in shorthand, he remembered threatening my father and mother Smith to burn them and the house over them. The acute sense of insecurity that rendered him obsessively anxious when his work was published and irrationally violent when he defended it accompanied Newton throughout his life and can plausibly be traced to his early years. After his mother was widowed a second time, she determined that her firstborn son should manage her now considerable property. It quickly became apparent, however, that this would be a disaster, both for the estate and for Newton. He could not bring himself to concentrate on rural affairs. Set to watch the cattle, he would curl up under a tree with a book. Fortunately, the mistake was recognized, and Newton was sent back to the grammar school in Grantham, where he had already studied, to prepare for the university. As with many of the leading scientists of the age, He left behind in Grantham anecdotes about his mechanical ability and his skill in building models of machines such as clocks and windmills. At the school, he apparently gained a firm command of Latin, but probably received no more than a smattering of arithmetic. By June 1661, he was ready to matriculate at Trinity College, Cambridge, somewhat older than the other undergraduates because of his interrupted education. Influence of the Scientific Revolution. When Newton arrived in Cambridge in 1661, the movement now known as the Scientific Revolution was well advanced, and many of the works basic to modern science had appeared. Astronomers from Nicholas Copernicus to Johannes Kepler had elaborated the heliocentric system of the universe. Galileo had proposed the foundations of a new mechanics built on the principle of inertia. Led by René Descartes, philosophers had begun to formulate a new conception of nature as an intricate, impersonal, and inert machine. Yet as far as the universities of Europe, including Cambridge, were concerned, all this might well have never happened. They continued to be the strongholds of outmoded Aristotelianism, which rested on a geocentric view of the universe and dealt with nature in qualitative rather than quantitative terms. Like thousands of other undergraduates, Newton began his higher education by immersing himself in Aristotle's work. Even though the new philosophy was not in the curriculum, it was in the air. Sometime during his undergraduate career, Newton discovered the works of the French natural philosopher Descartes and the other mechanical philosophers who, in contrast to Aristotle, viewed physical reality as composed entirely of particles of matter in motion, and who held that all the phenomena of nature result from their mechanical interaction. A new set of notes, which he entitled Questions Quaedam Philosophicae, Certain Philosophical Questions, begun sometime in 1664, usurped the unused pages of a notebook intended for traditional scholastic exercises. Under the title, he entered the slogan, Amicus Plato, Amicus Aristotelis, Magus Amica Veritas. Plato is my friend, Aristotle is my friend, but my best friend is truth. Newton's scientific career had begun. Equations written on blackboard, Britannica quiz numbers, and mathematics the questions reveal that Newton had discovered the new conception of nature that provided the framework of the scientific revolution. He had thoroughly mastered the works of Descartes and had also discovered that the French philosopher Pierre Gassendi had revived atomism, an alternative mechanical system to explain nature. The questions also reveal that Newton already was inclined to find the latter a more attractive philosophy than Cartesian natural philosophy, which rejected the existence of ultimate indivisible particles. The works of the 17th century chemist Robert Boyle provided the foundation for Newton's considerable work in chemistry. Significantly, he had read Henry More, the Cambridge Platonist, and was thereby introduced to another intellectual world, the magical Hermetic tradition, which sought to explain natural phenomena in terms of alchemical and magical concepts. The two traditions of natural philosophy, the mechanical and the Hermetic, antithetical though they appear, continued to influence his thought and in their tension, supplied the fundamental theme of his scientific career. Although he did not record it in the Questiones, Newton had also begun his mathematical studies. He again started with Descartes, from whose La Géométrie he branched out into the other literature of modern analysis, with its application of algebraic techniques to problems of geometry. He then reached back for the support of classical geometry. Within little more than a year, he had mastered the literature, and pursuing his own line of analysis, he began to move into new territory. He discovered the binomial theorem, and he developed the calculus, a more powerful form of analysis that employs infinitesimal considerations in finding the slopes of curves and areas under curves. Access for the whole family. Bundle Britannica Premium and Kids for the ultimate resource destination. By 1669, Newton was ready to write a tract summarizing his progress, De Analysi per Equationes Numeri Terminorum Infinitus, on analysis by infinite series, which circulated in manuscript through a limited circle and made his name known. During the next 2 years, he revised it as De Methodus Serierum et Fluxionum, on the methods of series and fluxions. The word fluxions, Newton's private rubric, indicates that the calculus had been born. Despite the fact that only a handful of savants were even aware of Newton's existence, he had arrived at the point where he had become the leading mathematician in Europe. Quick facts in full. Sir Isaac Newton, born December 25th, 1642, New Style, Woolsthorpe, Lincolnshire, England. Died March 20th, 1727, London, aged 84. Worked during the plague years. Who created the color wheel? Who created the color wheel? For millennia, many believed Aristotle's theory that all colors were a mixture of black and white. How did we learn otherwise? See all videos for this article. When Newton received the bachelor's degree in April of 1665, the most remarkable undergraduate career in the history of university education had passed unrecognized. On his own, without formal guidance, he had sought out the new philosophy in the